The stars weren't supposed to be this quiet. Not here. Not after the fleet vanished. Commander Ethan Caldwell stared through the reinforced viewport of the horizon's edge, watching the black expanse of the Kirath Expanse. It stretched endlessly, a void littered with distant glimmers that felt more like cosmic eyes than suns. The silence was suffocating. No chatter on the comms. No movement in the scanners beyond the occasional speck of debris. It was as if the galaxy itself had exhaled and disappeared. Beside him, Lieutenant Mara Jensen tapped her fingers against the console, a nervous rhythm that echoed through the bridge. Ethan, the fleet's been gone for 24 hours. Every ship. Poof. Like something, swallowed them whole. Ethan didn't answer. His jaw was tight, eyes fixed on the deep black. He had a bad feeling, the kind that settled into your bones and refused to leave. Something in the expanse wasn't natural. Something predatory. They had tried everything. Evade, hide, signal for reinforcements. Every attempt had ended in static or, worse, a recording of silence. And now, with supplies running low and morale fracturing, the only option left was desperate. "Command," Ethan said finally, voice low, rough with tension, "we're going to make the call." Mara froze. "You mean, them?" Ethan nodded. The crew of the Horizon's Edge had joked about it in the old days, when fear was still a luxury, the Zereth. The deadliest species in the galaxy, rumored to annihilate entire fleets for sport. Alien predators whose intelligence rivaled humans and whose ruthlessness exceeded anything the universe had catalogued. Everyone thought they were a myth, until now. Ethan's hand hovered over the emergency comm panel. This was no simple transmission. This was a suicide call wrapped in hope. If the Zereth intercepted it, and they would either kill them instantly, or respond. "Ethan, think about this," Mara started. "We have no hope left," he interrupted, voice hard but calm. "This is the last move. If we survive it, we survive. If we don't," he trailed off, eyes locking with hers. There was no shame and fear, only truth. The crew gathered in the dim light of the bridge, their faces pale and taut. Engineer Luis Ortega was fiddling nervously with the reactor core diagnostics, sweat glistening on his brow. Navigator Simone Park clenched the railing as though it were a lifeline to some unseen reality. Even the ship's AI, Aurora, maintained a low hum, almost mournful. "Initiate the call," Ethan commanded. His hand trembled, but the decision was made. There was no turning back. The console lit up, frequencies twisting into a complex code only the Zereth could decipher. The crew watched the display, every second stretching into eternity. The signal pulsed, sharp and alien, a digital heartbeat in the void. Minutes passed. Nothing. Silence. Then, a response. Not words. Not a voice. Something else. Something felt alive. The bridge lights flickered, sensors went haywire, and Aurora's voice cracked. "Detection, multiple energy signatures approaching at sublight velocity. Unknown origin." Ethan's heart thudded. They answered. Mara grabbed his arm. "Ethan, we can't." But before she could finish, the space around them seemed to twist. The stars stretched into streaks, then blinked out one by one, leaving only the horizon's edge suspended in an inky void. A hum, low and resonant, filled the ship. The Zereth were not merely approaching, they were folding reality around themselves, bending space as easily as a child bending a toy. Then came the shapes. Shadows against the black. Towering forms that flickered between matter and something else. The hull groaned, lights sparking. The crew pressed themselves to the consoles, hearts hammering, breaths shallow. Ethan took a step forward. Signal response confirmed. They want us to follow." Mara's voice shook. "They want us to? Ethan, this is insane. It's our only chance." His hand didn't waver. "Prepare the thrusters. We follow their path. No deviations. As the ship lurched forward, entering a corridor of darkness that seemed to stretch beyond known space, a new sound began, a low, collective resonance, like a chorus of whispers threading through metal and air. It was hypnotic, and horrifyingly intelligent. The crew felt it in their bones. The Zereth were aware of them. Every thought. Every fear. Luis muttered under his breath, "We're walking into the lion's den, and it's awake." The path opened into a vast expanse, a place that defied conventional physics. Stars hung in impossible patterns. Nebulae swirled like paint thrown across a black canvas. And in the center, an enormous construct loomed, a ship of organic metal, writhing with strange energy. Its surface pulsed with light that felt almost sentient, almost alive. The Zereth were not machines. Not exactly. They were something else, something that had evolved beyond the need for a physical form, existing instead as pure predatory consciousness encased in unimaginable technology. "Ethan," Mara whispered, voice barely audible. "They're beautiful, and deadly. They're also our last chance," he said, jaw tight. He activated the landing protocols, the hum of engines blending with the Zereth resonance. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to turn back. Every instinct shouted that they were too late, too small, too human. But he couldn't. The fleet was gone. Supplies were low. Death waited if they stayed. And against all logic, a sliver of hope had appeared. The horizon's edge crossed the threshold, entering the maw of the Zereth vessel. Shadows coiled around the hull, sensors screamed, and the stars blinked out. Inside, they would confront a species that redefined terror. And yet, despite the fear, Ethan felt a pulse of determination. Whatever happened next, they were alive. And for the first time in hours, there was purpose. The horizon's edge shuddered as it crossed the threshold of the Zereth vessel. Outside, the void was swallowed by living darkness. Inside, the ship's hull pulsed like a heartbeat, walls rippling with undulating shapes that seemed almost organic. Lights flared across the consoles in irregular patterns, like Morse code from some alien intelligence, and Aurora's voice quivered as it processed the readings. "Commander Caldwell," Aurora intoned, "structural integrity is fluctuating. Hull resonance is alive. External scans are unreliable. Unknown entities detected in immediate proximity." Ethan pressed his hands to the console, forcing calm over the rising panic in the crew. "Keep us steady. We have no idea what we're walking into, but we don't stop now." Mara Jensen's eyes darted around the bridge. Whatever they are, they can see us. I can feel it." Her voice was tight, almost trembling. "It's like the walls themselves are watching." She wasn't wrong. Every surface of the Zereth vessel seemed to throb with intent, as if the structure itself was a living predator, anticipating their every move. The corridors twisted unpredictably, and every turn felt like stepping deeper into a labyrinth designed to disorient and intimidate. "Ethan," Luis Ortega said, his hands shaking as he adjusted the engine outputs, "I'm reading multiple forms. Not just one species. It's like a hive, a collective consciousness. They're everywhere and nowhere." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Everyone, stay close. No stragglers. No heroics. We move as one." The crew moved through the corridors, the walls shifting around them, pulsating in sync with some alien rhythm. Alohum filled the air, vibrating through metal, bone, and nerve. It wasn't just sound, it was a message, an unspoken assertion of dominance. Then they saw them. The Zereth didn't look like anything in human reference. They were massive, humanoid silhouettes, yet their forms constantly shimmered, phasing in and out of visibility. Their surfaces rippled with energy, skin like armor reflecting impossible colors. They didn't move like creatures, they moved like storms contained in flesh. And then, they spoke, not with words, but in thought. A voice in each mind, heavy, intelligent, and unrelentingly patient. "Why have you come?" The thought crashed into Ethan's mind, cold as ice, sharp as steel. It wasn't an attack, it was curiosity. And it demanded honesty. He opened his mouth, voice steady despite the adrenaline racing through his veins. "We seek aid. The Expanse has taken our fleet. our species, we're on the brink of annihilation. We've come to ask for survival. You know what survival costs? Mara grabbed Ethan's sleeve, whispering, "We don't know what we're offering them." Ethan didn't answer. He knew. Everything they had ever feared about the Zareth, their reputation as hunters, destroyers, arbiters of extinction, was real. Yet, here they were, standing in the maw of the deadliest species in the galaxy, hoping that mercy existed in a predator's mind. There is a cost. A choice. You will be tested. The corridor shifted again, now forming a chamber the size of a small city. At its center floated a pulsating orb of pure energy, thrumming with light and sound that threatened to overwhelm the senses. Around it, the Zareth forms moved in a pattern almost ritualistic, their collective thought washing over the crew like a tide of intellect and hunger. Step forward. Face your truth. Ethan swallowed hard, feeling Mara's hand tighten around his. We step forward, he said aloud. Immediately, the orb expanded, and the chamber dissolved into a series of visions. Each crew member was confronted with a reality distilled to their core fears and regrets. Ethan saw the faces of the fleet, lost and silent, the void swallowing them without mercy. Mara saw her family back on Earth, imagining every what-if that had driven her to the stars. Louise saw the reactor core exploding, the horizon's edge reduced to ash. Simone Park, the navigator, saw herself lost in an infinite maze of stars, unable to save a single life. It wasn't physical. It was emotional, mental, an assault on their very essence. And yet, Ethan forced himself to look deeper. Through the fear, he saw what the Zareth wanted, understanding. Not weakness, not subservience, but the raw, unfiltered truth of survival instinct. "You're judging us," Ethan whispered, almost to himself. "Not for failure, for truth. Survival is not given. It is earned." A sudden jolt threw the crew to the ground. The Zareth had shifted their attention, focusing the chamber's energy on the horizon's edge itself. The walls pulsed, shadows reaching like tendrils toward the ship. Aurora's voice cut through the panic. "Hull breach is imminent. Environmental integrity failing. Recommend immediate compliance with Zareth directives." Ethan scrambled to his feet, adrenaline sharpening his clarity. "Listen to me," he shouted. "We follow. We comply. We don't fight. Not here. Not now." The tendrils retracted, the walls receding, and the visions dissolved. The Zareth were silent, observing, calculating. Every beat of their consciousness stretched across the chamber, weighing them. Finally, the voice, this time shared by all of the Zareth forms, entered their minds with undeniable authority. "You have faced yourself. You have not faltered. You may live. But one condition remains." Ethan's pulse quickened. "Name it. Aid us in reclaiming what was stolen." "A plague spreads among the outer colonies, an infestation of your kind's own creation. Assist, and survival is yours. Refuse, and you will be extinguished." Mara stiffened. "They want us to, weapons testers?" Luis shook his head. "More like pawns." Ethan's hand went to the console, tapping a coordinate set that would guide them into the heart of the outer colonies, a place racked with chaos and disease. "We don't have a choice," he said finally, voice low. "If we refuse, no one survives. Not us, not the fleet." The Zareth presence faded, leaving only the living walls and the pulse of the chamber. Yet their intent lingered like a shadow over the crew, a reminder that they were dealing with beings for whom morality and empathy were alien constructs. Mara exhaled sharply. "We're being used," she muttered. "And we just agreed." Ethan didn't respond. There was no anger, no regret, only focus. "We're alive. That's the only thing that matters right now. If we follow them, maybe we can save the fleet. Maybe we can even save ourselves." Aurora's calm tone cut through the tension. Navigational parameters set. Course aligned with Zareth coordinates. Estimated travel time, 63 standard hours. "Set it," Ethan ordered. "And keep shields at maximum." I don't trust a single pulse of this ship's life. The crew braced themselves as the horizon's edge began to move, threading its way through the living labyrinth of the Zareth vessel. Shadows and whispers clung to the hull, the pulse of the alien ship thrumming like a heartbeat in sync with the crew's own fears. Each step forward was a gamble, survival balanced on the edge of the Predator's favor, trust threaded through terror. Louis muttered, almost to himself, I don't know if I can ever see the galaxy the same way again. Ethan's gaze swept the bridge, resting on each member of his crew. You won't. But we make it through this, we change the story. We're not just survivors. We're witnesses. And maybe, we're the ones who get to write the next chapter. The ship surged forward, leaving the Zareth chamber behind, but the weight of their presence lingered. Every shadow in the void, every flicker of light, every heartbeat on the ship reminded them, survival had a price. And the galaxy was about to collect it. The void stretched endlessly before the horizon's edge, a canvas of black pierced by the distant glow of dying stars. Yet out here, among the scattered colonies at the edge of human-controlled space, the ship felt smaller than ever. The Zareth instructions had been precise: locate the infestation, neutralize it, and report back. But nothing about this mission felt precise. Nothing about the dead colonies, the empty stations, or the disease that whispered through the corridors of abandoned habitats felt safe. Coordinates locked, Aurora's voice echoed in the bridge, calm and precise, though the hum of unease thrummed beneath her circuits. Infestation zones identified. Estimated spread, 97%. Local life support failing. Immediate containment required. Ethan Caldwell tightened his grip on the console. We don't have the luxury of hesitation, he said. We follow the Zareth instructions. We contain it, and we survive. Mara Jensen leaned against the railing, her eyes scanning the starfield. Survive, at what cost, Ethan? Every report we get from these colonies, it's humans. Innocent humans. Families. Children. He didn't answer immediately. He couldn't. Survival here wasn't a simple matter of heroism, it was a calculation, a balance of lives and odds. The Zareth had given them life, but it came with strings, and every string pulled at something essential in the human soul. The first colony was a ghost. Once a hub of commerce and habitation, it now floated in silence, the structures corroded by neglect and disease. Luis Ortega, scanning the external sensors, muttered under his breath, "It's worse than they said. Entire population gone, or gone mad." Ethan nodded grimly. "Prepare a boarding team. We need to assess contamination, retrieve samples, and neutralize it before moving to the next site." As they entered the colony, the airlocks hissed open, releasing a cloud of stale, toxic atmosphere. The corridors were littered with debris, overturned carts, abandoned belongings, walls streaked with a dark, sticky residue that pulsed faintly under the scanner's light. Simone Park, the navigator, whispered, "It's alive, it's still spreading. Every surface." Mara's face was pale, but she pushed forward, following Ethan as he led the team. Each step was met with the faint sound of movement, whispers that weren't quite sound, tendrils of infection creeping along walls like living veins. The Zareth method of containment was alien and terrifying. It required precise control of energy pulses that could neutralize the infestation, but at the cost of anything organic in the zone. Ethan hesitated at the first major junction, staring at the energy matrix on the portable console. "We can clear it," he said quietly, "but we'll wipe out anyone left inside. Including survivors." Mara's hand froze over the control panel. "We can't just." He looked at her, eyes hard. "We either do this now, or the infestation reaches other colonies, the fleet, maybe even the homeworlds. We don't get to play savior. Not here. Not anymore." Louis cursed under his breath. "They're asking us to become executioners." Ethan's answer was a single nod. "We're following the only path that keeps humanity alive. The Zareth are testing more than our obedience, they're testing our ability to make impossible choices." The energy pulses fired, sweeping through the corridors. The infestation screamed in soundless frequency, writhing like a storm of living shadows. The team felt it in their bones, a psychic weight pressing down, testing their endurance, their morality. When it was over, silence reigned. The corridors were clear. Yet the victory was hollow, charred remnants of life, both human and alien, lined the walls. Mara sank to her knees, trembling. We did it. But at what cost? Ethan's voice was low, almost a whisper. We survived. That's what matters. They moved from colony to colony, each one a mirror of the last: devastation, the creeping infestation, the necessity of lethal containment. With every sight, the crew's resolve frayed, but survival demanded continuation. The Zareth watched through their minds, observing, calculating, teaching humanity a lesson about survival that no human strategy could convey. After days of grim work, the final sight loomed, a station once bustling with children, families, and scientists. The infestation had spread to its core. Ethan felt Mara's hand brush against his arm. This one, we can't, she whispered, tears brimming. He shook his head slowly. If we don't, everything dies. We either follow through, or the plague doesn't stop here. Aurora's sensors confirmed it, energy pulses alone would suffice, but the cost was absolute. No one inside would survive. No human, no alien, nothing organic. The Zareth requirement was ruthless, but exact. Ethan inhaled deeply and tapped the console. Do it. Full containment. No exceptions. The pulses swept through the station. Shadows screamed without sound, the air trembled, and the crew felt the psychic impact of erasing life, conscious and innocent. Mara's sobs echoed in the confined space. Ethan stood silent, muscles taut, mind focused on one thing: keeping them alive. When it was over, the station was dead. Silent. Clean. The infestation eradicated. The crew returned to the horizon's edge, their faces pale, haunted. No one spoke for hours. The Zareth watched, yet remained invisible, a shadow over their consciousness. Finally, Mara broke the silence. How do we keep living after this? Ethan stared out at the void, the stars still indifferent. We survive. That's what we promised ourselves when we made the call. That's what we promised each other. Maybe someday, we'll find a way to make it right. But today, we survive. Aurora's calm voice cut through the quiet. Zareth contact established. They acknowledge mission completion. They have granted continued protection for the fleet and crew. No further directives pending. Relief was a fleeting thing. The crew had survived, but the moral cost weighed heavier than any physical threat. They had followed the deadliest species in the galaxy, faced impossible choices, and emerged alive, but changed indelibly. Ethan walked to the bridge viewport, looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, the fleet waited. If any were left, they would be saved. Humanity had survived the expanse, not by heroics, but by sacrifice, obedience, and the willingness to make choices no human should have to make. Mara joined him, her hand finding his. We made it, she said softly. We did, Ethan replied. But we'll never be the same. And maybe, that's the point. Survival isn't about glory. It's about living through the worst the galaxy can throw at you and carrying the weight of it forward. A subtle pulse resonated through the ship, faint but present. The Zareth had not left, they never truly left, but they had acknowledged the human's worth, their capacity for endurance and ruthless pragmatism. The horizon's edge had become more than a ship. It was proof that humanity, in the face of annihilation, could bend, endure, and survive. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, indifferent yet beautiful. Ethan knew the path forward would be fraught with unknowns, moral dilemmas, and dangers beyond imagining. But for now, the crew had survived. And in the expanse, survival was victory enough. Ethan exhaled, letting the weight of months of fear and responsibility roll off his shoulders. Mara leaned against him, and for a moment, the darkness of space felt less oppressive. Somewhere in the galaxy, hope still existed, even if it was fragile, precarious, and painfully earned. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, humanity's pulse beat alongside the deadliest species in the galaxy, not in triumph, but in survival. The void waited. So did the future.